the beginning of an unbreakable bond. The first time Mia saw Buddy, the world seemed frozen in place. It was the middle of December, and the air carried the crisp, biting chill of an oncoming storm. Snowflakes spiraled from the sky, covering the city in a white embrace. The streets were bustling with last-minute Christmas shoppers, their laughter and hurried footsteps echoing through the evening air. The warm, golden lights of the storefronts flickered like tiny stars against the winter haze, creating an illusion of warmth despite the frost-covered sidewalks. Mia had just stepped out of the grocery store, her arms wrapped around a small bag of essentials. She had planned a quiet evening, curled up in a blanket with a book and a cup of hot chocolate, savoring the rare solitude of the holiday season. But fate had other plans. A faint whimper reached her ears as she walked past a dimly lit alley. It was soft, almost imperceptible beneath the chatter of the crowd. But it was there, and it made her pause. She turned her head, her gaze scanning the alleyway. Tucked inside a worn-out cardboard box, half covered by an old plaid scarf, was a tiny golden-furred puppy. His big brown eyes, full of innocence and uncertainty, stared up at her, shivering against the unforgiving cold. Mia's heart clenched. Who could abandon such a fragile creature? She hesitated only a moment before kneeling beside him. The puppy whimpered again, his small body trembling violently. Carefully, she reached out, letting him sniff her fingers. He hesitated, but then, with a cautious trust, nuzzled against her palm. "You're freezing," she murmured, her voice gentle as she picked him up. His fur was damp, his ribs faintly visible beneath the thin coat. He couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. Glancing around, Mia searched for any sign of an owner, but the alley remained empty. No one was looking for him. No one had left a note or any indication that he was wanted. He had been discarded like an afterthought. Her chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't quite name. Anger, sadness, compassion, perhaps a blend of them all. Tightening her grip on the small bundle, she tucked him inside her coat, letting the warmth of her body seep into his frozen limbs. His small form pressed against her, and for the first time, he stopped shivering. Mia didn't think twice. She wasn't going to leave him there. He needed her, and something deep inside her knew she needed him too. The walk home was slow and careful. Now and then, she peeked inside her coat, making sure he was still breathing. By the time she reached her apartment, her mind was already made up. This puppy was hers now. She set him down on her couch, unwrapping the scarf from around his frail body. He let out a small yawn, blinking up at her with sleepy eyes. "What am I going to call you?" she mused aloud, brushing a few damp strands of fur from his tiny face. He tilted his head as if trying to understand her words before curling into a ball. "Buddy," she decided after a moment. "Yeah, you look like a buddy." The name felt right, like it had always belonged to him. She smiled softly as she watched him settle into the cushion, his little chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. From that moment on, Mia and Buddy were inseparable. A friendship that stood the test of time. Buddy grew up fast, too fast. Within months, the tiny, shivering puppy had blossomed into a lively, golden-furred ball of energy. He followed Mia everywhere, his small paws clicking against the wooden floors of their apartment, his tail wagging like a little flag of happiness. Every morning, he waited by her bedroom door, his wet nose nudging it open just enough to peek inside. If she didn't wake up quickly enough, he'd climb onto the bed, licking her face until she surrendered to his demands for morning cuddles. During the afternoons, they'd take long walks through the park. Buddy had a way of making even the simplest moments feel magical. He chased after falling leaves, barked excitedly at passing squirrels, and wiggled his way into the hearts of every stranger they passed. Mia had never been a particularly social person. Before Buddy, she preferred quiet evenings, with books over crowded gatherings. But Buddy changed that. He was a magnet for attention, drawing smiles from strangers and conversations with people she otherwise would have never spoken to. Over the years, they built a routine together. Morning walks, afternoon playtime, evening cuddles. Buddy was more than just a pet. He was her best friend, her family. But time has a cruel way of slipping through the cracks of happiness. And before Mia even realized it, Buddy wasn't the energetic pup he once was. His steps became slower, his once vibrant fur tinged with silver. The spark in his eyes remained, but his body no longer held the same strength. The realization hit Mia hard. The pup she had rescued all those years ago was aging, and she wasn't ready for what came next. The weight of time. Mia tried to ignore it at first, the way Buddy hesitated before jumping onto the couch, the way he took longer to get up after lying down. She convinced herself it was temporary, that he was just having an off day. But the days turned into weeks, and the truth became undeniable. Buddy was getting old. The vet confirmed what Mia had feared. He's healthy for his age, but arthritis is setting in, the doctor said kindly. You'll need to make some adjustments for him. Softer bedding, shorter walks, maybe some medication to ease his discomfort. Mia nodded, absorbing the words even as they formed a lump in her throat. She wasn't ready for this. Buddy had been by her side for so long. How could time be slipping away so quickly? Determined to make things easier for him, she adapted. She bought a memory foam dog bed, placed rugs over the slippery hardwood floors, and shortened their walks to a slow, leisurely pace. And though Buddy couldn't run like he used to, he still wagged his tail, still looked at her with the same unwavering love. One evening, as she sat beside him on the couch, stroking his silver-tinged fur, she whispered, "I wish you could stay with me forever, Buddy." His tired eyes met hers, and at that moment, she could swear he understood. And that's when she realized, love doesn't fade with time, it only deepens. The final days. The inevitable had been creeping in for months, but Mia tried to hold on to the little moments that made it feel like everything was okay. She noticed the changes in Buddy's behavior, the way his body moved slower, how his eyes, though still filled with love, carried a weight of exhaustion that hadn't been there before. His once boundless energy was fading, and the spark that made him the lively pup she had known for so many years was slowly dimming. Mia spent most of her days adjusting to his new pace, making sure he didn't have to climb too many stairs, setting down a bowl of water closer to his bed so he wouldn't have to walk far. She added extra blankets to his favorite resting spot and took more time simply sitting beside him, stroking his soft fur, whispering stories of their adventures. She wanted him to feel safe, to know he was loved. One day, while sitting on their apartment balcony, Buddy rested his head on Mia's lap. The autumn wind rustled his aging fur as he gazed up at her, his tail giving a slow, weak wag. "You're tired, aren't you, boy?" she murmured, her fingers gently running through his coat. He blinked slowly, his response a deep sigh as he pressed closer to her warmth. Mia swallowed the lump forming in her throat. She wanted to believe she had more time, but she knew that wasn't how life worked. The vet had told her that Buddy's time was running short and that she should prepare for the inevitable. But how could she? How could she say goodbye to the one soul who had been with her through everything? Every heartbreak, every success, every lonely night when she had no one else? Mia canceled plans, choosing to stay home with Buddy instead. She took leave from work, unwilling to spend a second away from him. She cooked his favorite meals, spoon-feeding him when he was too weak to eat on his own. She carried him outside when he wanted to sit in the sun and held him close when he trembled in his sleep. The hardest part was seeing his spirit still shine through his failing body. He still wagged his tail when she walked into the room, still giving her those loving eyes that said, "I'm happy because I'm with you." One evening, Mia sat with Buddy on the couch, the way they had done for years. She wrapped him in his favorite blanket, holding him close to her chest. The silence between them was heavy, but there was understanding in it too. "I love you so much, Buddy," she whispered, pressing a kiss to the top of his head. "I wish you could stay with me forever." Buddy's tail gave one final small wag before he nestled deeper into her arms, his breathing slowing into a steady rhythm. Mia stayed like that for hours, listening to his heartbeat, savoring the feeling of his warmth. She didn't know that would be their last night together. The last gift. The morning felt different. Mia woke up to the soft glow of sunlight streaming through the window, its warmth doing little to ease the heaviness in her chest. Buddy lay beside her, wrapped in the same blanket she had tucked him in the night before. His body was still, too still. His chest no longer rose and fell with the gentle rhythm of sleep. For a long moment, Mia didn't move. She didn't cry. She simply stared, waiting for the impossible, To see his ears twitch, to hear his sleepy sigh, to feel the weight of his love pressing against her once more. But he was gone. Tears slid silently down her cheeks as she reached out, her fingers brushing against his fur. He was peaceful, as if he had simply drifted away into a dream. Grief came in waves, crashing into her without warning. She sobbed into the silence of the room, her whole body trembling. The pain was unbearable, suffocating. But through the sorrow, she whispered the only thing she could. "Thank you for loving me, buddy." She buried him beneath the old oak tree in the backyard, their favorite spot. It was where he had chased squirrels, where he had napped in the summer sun, where he had always been happiest. She placed his favorite chew toy beside him, the one he had carried since he was a puppy. It was his last gift to her. The days that followed were filled with aching emptiness. Every corner of the apartment held memories of him. The leash hanging by the door, the paw prints on the wooden floor, the quiet absence of his presence beside her. Mia struggled with the silence. One evening, she found herself walking through the city, lost in thought. The world moved on around her, but she felt stuck in place. Then, just as she passed by a dimly lit alleyway, a familiar sound reached her ears, a whimper. Mia froze. She turned her head, heart pounding, as she stepped toward the sound. There, curled up inside a battered cardboard box, was a tiny, shivering puppy. His fur was damp, his ribs faintly visible beneath the thin coat. His eyes, filled with innocence and fear, locked onto hers. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. It was as if the universe had brought her full circle. Slowly, she knelt beside him. The puppy flinched at first, but then, cautiously, he sniffed her outstretched hand. Mia felt her heart break and heal all at once. "Hey there," she murmured, scooping him up. He was light as a feather, so fragile in her arms. "It's okay. You're safe now." The tiny body pressed against her, seeking warmth. And in that moment, Mia realized something. Love never truly fades. It finds its way back in unexpected ways, in new beginnings, in the echoes of the ones we've lost. As she walked home, the little puppy curled against her chest. She whispered the same words she had spoken once before. "Let's get you home.